Hi guys, welcome back to another video. If this is your first time being on my channel, hi, I'm Nandini. I am a freshman at NYU and I am possibly looking to declare a major in journalism and dramatic literature. In my first semester over here, I'm currently taking a set of prerequisites and core courses that I need to fulfill my graduation requirements. In this video, I am going to give you a comprehensive guide on how you can minimize stress during your college years, which is done through a strategic system of course planning and time management. Without further ado, oh my god, I feel so formal. Let's get started! Hi guys, this is future Nandini sitting down to edit this video. I have a surprise for you guys. Please stick around till the end of this longish sort of video because my teaching assistant of the course that I'm going to talk about in this video, his name is Gabriel, Emmett, Quigley. Hopefully, Gabriel, if you're watching this, please don't kill me. I did not try to butcher your name at all. I tried my best to say it the best way that I can. He actually has some really good tips for you guys, and he spent a lot of effort. I could see he gave a lot of effort to think about his time management skills and his college days and giving tips to students like us. So you should definitely, even if you don't listen to anything that I say in this video, you should definitely take his advice into account. He was very nervous about it. Make him feel better, take his advice. In this video, I am going to take the example of one of my courses that I'm currently pursuing at NYU, and I am going to show you how I do the readings, the midterms, the assignments, the quizzes, blah 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 for that course so that you can understand from one example and then apply it to other courses and other requirements that you need to fulfill. This course is called What is Meaning? Yes, I know it's a quirky title. A lot of people have questioned me about why I'm taking this course, but it's actually a fantastic course. It comes under one of the text and ideas requirements of NYU's core curriculum. If I had to describe this course in a nutshell, it's basically a humanities course combined with a bit of philosophy, because you have to dissect different philosophers and what they wrote and what they might mean through that. For example, we read works from David Hume, Aristotle, Wittgenstein, Francis Bacon, who's a fantastic philosopher by the way, and we get to dissect all the works that they have done. In this course, we have to do a bunch of readings which are due before every class. We have 2 lectures in 1 week, and we also have a smaller sort of recitation in which our teaching assistant helps us understand all those readings in greater detail and more depth. And we also have, I think, a quiz once every 2 weeks, and we also have an assignment once in every sort of 2 to 3 weeks, and the length of each assignment and the complexity keeps increasing so that we keep getting more philosophical. Something like that in a nutshell. Okay, so firstly I just want to mention that I actually did not want to take this course, but it's turned out to be one of my favorite courses now because of the fantastic teaching that the professor and the teaching assistant is doing. So shout out to any of you if you guys are watching this. And I want to say, when I first started this course, I was like, oh my god, what am I doing here? I was so stressed when I looked at the syllabus because there were so many, even though the readings are pretty short for this course in comparison to my other courses, there was just so much on my plate, and I was just scrolling through the syllabus because in high school, we didn't have a syllabus where we knew that, okay, this reading was due this day, that day, that day. At least in my high school, we did not have a system like that. So I was all over the place, at least during my first 2 weeks of college, trying to figure out how to do these multiple readings together. And that's when I came up with a renewed sort of system of using sticky notes, as you can very nicely see on my wall right here, which shows that I actually do follow them and I'm not just preaching. Okay, so when it comes to sticky notes, you can literally buy any sticky notes, or you can literally take out a scrap of paper and make your own sticky notes. But I'm just lazy, so I just buy sticky notes. So there are these Post-its that come at a very convenient size in which I can write down all the readings that are due for this course of mine, and I divide them into different courses then, and then I list them up on my wall like this. For example, writing the essay, what is meaning, blah 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 blah. All the courses are in one line for different weeks, and all their readings are divided here. It's also, I have these different colors, so it just makes my wall more colorful, and I get to color code them subject wise and all that. So it just motivates me to actually sit down on my desk and work through all that work. Okay, so now that we understand how to actually categorize the reading subject-wise, I want to talk about doing the readings in itself. If you are taking a course that has a lot of readings to do, then I would suggest doing the readings way in advance, not just a day before, because at least for me, I personally like to do the readings at least 2 weeks in advance. I know you guys are probably thinking I'm this crazy freak who just works all the time, and that is true, but not actually very true also. It's just I know that I don't work well at all under pressure, and I don't like procrastinating at all because it just builds up within me, and then I have this whole stress frenzy and like I just can't work. So I like to do the readings way in advance, in which they're actually like before they're actually due. And you can adopt any system that you want over here, but I would suggest doing the readings on the weekends. You know, like if you have 1 week, okay, you have the week ahead of you, then you have the weekend before that. Whatever readings for any course that is due in that week, at least do them on the weekend so that you don't have to stress about them at all during the weekdays, and the weekdays can be left for going to office hours, asking doubts in the course content, learning the course content, and in general for assignments and doing quizzes and actually preparing and not just reading through pages. Now is the fancy topic that a lot of people think is a waste of time: note taking. I do not like, note taking is very, very important, at least for me. I think note taking helps break down whatever you've understood through that piles and piles of information that you're reading, and it also helps you frame your sort of conceptual ideas in a better way, especially for a course like what is meaning, where everything is flowing everywhere and sometimes I don't even understand what the reading is saying. At least I can note down any doubts that I have. So I would suggest always whenever you're reading something, especially if you're doing the readings in advance like I do, write it down. Whether you like taking notes on your laptop, on your iPad, or on a notebook, write it down. It just helps you understand and synthesize your thoughts better. And honestly, if you're just reading and then you forget about it, then basically you just didn't do the reading, which is kind of useless. So just take the notes. Okay, when I'm doing like the reading notes, I don't like to make them fancy. Like I won't highlight them, I won't color code them, I won't put little sticky notes or make little drawings to help me want to study, because they're just like my notes, and I know I'm going to learn so much more in the discussions and in the recitations in the lecture. But one thing I do like to note down are any questions or doubts that I have, so that when and as they get cleared when the professor is sort of preaching, that time I can cross it off, or if it's not clear, then I can ask it over an office hour meeting or in recitations or anything like that. And I also just basically, when you're reading a paragraph, what I like to do is I read the paragraph. If there's any quotation that I want, to write down, which I think is interesting, I write down the quotation, or I write down the page number where I can find that quotation. And basically, I just synthesize what the paragraph said in my own words so that I actually understand and not just memorize, because there's no point in memorizing, at least in a course like this. Okay, now is the fun time. I love talking about my daily planner. It's honestly, it's a godsend. I never used daily planner before I came to university, but I have found it so much more efficient and helpful. I'm literally not saying that you write down every single thing that you have to do in the day and like sort of function as a robot, but at least write down the main things that you need to get done during that day, or during those 2 or 3 days, or during that week, or whatever like that. And I like to plan literally every single day, with how much, literally ranging from how much water I'm having, because I forget to have water to, like, if any meeting or any class or any assignment or essay or internship that I need to work on, anything like that has to go down in your planner. And honestly, there's nothing better than the feeling of physically checking or crossing or ticking, that task. When it's over, you feel like, you can keep a check of the progress that you've made during the day, and honestly, it's the best feeling in the world. Now comes my second sort of favorite thing, which is the use of Google Calendar, or like so many people say Gcal, which I find really weird. I don't know why. Yeah, so Google Calendar, you can have it on a weekly, monthly setting, whatever you like. I personally like to keep it on a monthly setting, but write down my week as my week goes. So I usually sit down on a Sunday night, or sometimes even Fridays if I have a lot of work on the weekend and I don't want to spend so much time, because it actually takes so much out of you when you have to plan all this. But it's actually really helpful when you look at it in the future and with a bigger perspective and stuff like that. So for Google Calendar, write down any assignments or readings that you have due that day, but don't actually write down, what I like to do is I don't write down every single thing that I have to do on the day, because that's what if you can see, I don't think you can see, but that's what my daily planner, which is there, is for. I just like to write down if I have an assignment due that day, so that if by any chance I forgot to submit it or I forgot to even work on it, I can get to the task and finish it off. And that's why my Google Calendar is not as detailed as my other planning strategies are, but I think it's a helpful tool just to understand how your month or week or even your day is going to be planned out. If you guys have been watching any of my previous videos, actually some of them, you will realize that I've been attending NYU online via the platform of Zoom. Oh, love it. Actually, it's not turned out that bad, huh? My online learning, but I would like to now talk about actually attending classes or lectures or whatever. So firstly, when you're attending your lecture, I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with keeping their cameras on, and I totally get that. Sometimes your camera is broken, sometimes you're not in a position or an environment, or you have some sort of technical issue or difficulty, or you are just nervous to keep your camera on. But if you actually want to focus, to increase that focus a little bit extra, I think keeping your camera on actually helps you. Besides just helping others see you, because otherwise I feel bad for the professors, because they're basically just talking to a blank screen and it's less interactive. Apart from that reason for keeping your camera on, I would suggest, because you actually when you keep your camera on, you are forced to concentrate, because if you go to another tab, someone's probably going to see, or if you zone out, or if you go walk around and you're not actually listening or paying attention, that camera will notice that, which is why if you keep your camera on, you will be forced to sit in one place and pay attention and not zone out. Sort of tagging along to that point, try and attend as many lectures as you can synchronously. I live in a very different time zone than New York's time zone, but I still attend all of my classes live or synchronously. And the reason for that is it's just not the same when you watch a recording, because I know a lot of people like to pause and take notes, but I don't think that's really helpful, because you're not a part of the discussion, because you don't actually feel like you're in a setting where you're actually in a class as much as you can with Zoom and paying attention. So I would definitely recommend you being synchronous, and please attend lecture. So many people just don't attend lecture even though they are synchronous. Attend lecture, be on time or be early. I have had the opportunity to be early on a lot of lectures, and I've actually gotten to know the professor, because the professor comes early and then he's just like, oh, how are you, Nandini? How's your day going? What have you been doing? And in a class of more than 100 people, I think when the professor and you build a connection like that, it can really be helpful for you in the future. Last point for attending lectures is taking notes. As I mentioned before, taking notes while you're reading is important. Equally important is taking notes when you're actually in the lecture, because that is what you will be tested on in your quizzes, and that's where all your information will be stored. So always take notes, and as much as you can, revise them right after or within 1 or 2 days of the lecture, so that you can retain all that information. At least it works for me, because if I revise those notes 2 weeks later or just before the exam, I'm not going to remember why I made those notes, because the professor's speaking fast. I'm taking short notes just to help me understand, and if I don't elaborate on them right after the lecture, then I will forget what those words even meant in the first place, and then the whole thing just goes down the drain. Don't do that. Now is the time to talk about revision, whether it's for midterms, whether it's for quizzes or anything like that. Now when it comes to revision, I believe in a rule that I have created for myself, which is the 30-10 minute rule, which just always motivates me to get that note hammering thing in. Basically, what I mean by that is, if I sit down with my textbook or my notes, I read through them, I understand them, it'll take me about, say, an example would be 30 minutes, or sometimes an hour, sometimes 2 hours. Because I've done it right then after the lecture, everything is crystal clear in my brain and I can move on. Now, when it comes to actually giving the exams and you have to go through all those same notes again, you probably will forget at least some portion of what you learned. At least I always forget most of it. But when I go back, instead of taking those 2 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes to revise the notes, I'll probably take between 15 minutes to 10 minutes. So it's going to be so much faster and I can just move on to the next section. And like this, all the sections will be covered so much faster. So basically what I'm trying to say is, don't hammer in all the information the night before an exam or even a day before. If you know you have an exam coming up, depending on the amount of course content that you have and how hard you think it is for you, and if you have a lot of doubts and all those factors, try to revise at least 2 weeks before, and revise consistently. You don't have to sit down and revise everything in one day unless it's right before the exam. We just want to focus on that subject. You can revise small portions of it in like half an hour blocks every single day. At least you'll be consistent and you'll get the work done. Lastly, one extra thing for this sort of section. Sorry, I don't know what that noise was. My air conditioner is going haywire right now, I think. Anyways, it's so hot. Sorry. Coming back on the topic, we have to talk about extra note taking before quizzes. So what I like to do is to break down the segments, because a lot of my quizzes are just open book right now. I just go through them, and whatever section I finish, I add like this extra sticky note on top which tells, okay, this page or this section or the next 2 pages talk about Aristotle, or they talk about Hume's ideas, or they talk about contiguity or resemblance or cause or effect, or whatever concept is being covered, so that if I have to go back to them during review session, I know exactly where that page is supposed to be found, and I don't have to actually read through all that information just to find that one contiguity definition. And finally, the last part of this long-ish video is assignments. If you've been around for this long, you are a real one. I really, mad respect, bro. Anyways, let's talk about assignments. Okay, so for assignments, I'm going to take the example of what is meaning again. My professor usually likes to give us 2 options that we can choose from. Once I've read through both the prompts, I see which prompt I find more interesting, that I already know about, or I want to know about. Usually it's the second one where I want to know about because I'm intrigued and I want to dissect through all those big prompts. So I choose a prompt, number 1. Number 2, when I have my chosen prompt in front of me, I literally sit down and dissect it. It's like when a human body is in front and like the doctor dissects like the different parts of it. I dissect literally my prompt into different questions, because sometimes those prompts are really long. You have a lot of questions that you need to answer, and if you don't highlight important questions or the flow in which you're going to answer those questions, you're probably going to forget those questions, and it's a shame if you lose your grades like that. Next point is on timing. Whenever I get an assignment, I literally start on it that very day or the next day at max if nothing else is wrong. Like I'm sick or like I have to travel somewhere, anything like that. And the reason why I do that is, firstly, as I mentioned before, I hate procrastinating. Secondly, it stays in my mind that, I have to do this. Whether, like, I would rather just sit down, finish it off and not think about it than have it be placed in my mind for days on end and I do it one night before that. No, I like to work on it small part by small part throughout the week, so that when I'm done, I can proofread and I can submit it without any stress. This is probably a very small part of your assignment, but it's actually very important. That is spelling and grammar. Whenever you're reading or like typing or whatever you're doing in that assignment, make sure that you don't miss that question mark or that full stop, or you forget to capitalize, because I swear to God, these professors will mark you down for it. And that's not a wrong thing to do on the professor's side. It's just a shame if you lose your grades that way. Like, you have fabulous content, but just because it doesn't make sense or you misspelled a word which confuses the reader, your professor or your teaching assistant, whoever, it's such a shame if you lose your grades like that. So I would definitely recommend tidying with grammar. Proofread. Please, I know it's so hard to just read through your work again and again, but it is very, very important. If it helps, sit down with another person and read it aloud to them, so that if they have any doubts or they notice something else that is wrong with your work, you can correct it. And when you actually read aloud your work, you realize if something doesn't make sense or where you have a run-on sentence or anything like that, and you can correct it right then and right there. No stress. Okay, so as promised, now's the time for those extra surprises that I wanted to give you. It's just some extra tips that my teaching assistant for this class, Gabriel, wants to share with you guys. So let him take the stage.
Okay. So for a tip, but I want to begin or preface this by saying that I don't think that I'm necessarily an authority on the subject. I don't know if my tip is I suppose that authoritative, but I could say that if I were to go back in time and talk to my college self, something that I would recommend to my college self, and perhaps this will be useful for you, thinking about how to spend your time and how to strategize for your own college education, is I would tell my college self to really take seriously this period in my life and my career, and to really recognize not only the privilege that comes with this experience, but the decisiveness of this experience for my future life possibilities or choices. So, to be brief, I think I would tell my college self to party less and to spend more time thinking about what I prioritize intellectually, but then also spend more time working towards achieving the different goals or accomplishments that I might associate with those intellectual priorities. However, in case this tip gets taken and applied to its radical conclusion, I would like to emphasize that this doesn't foreclose the possibility of relaxing or doing nothing or spending time with friends or any of those other things that also characterize one's college years. But I do think that one thing that should be prioritized more than it possibly is the realization or the relationship with one's college education as precisely that. A very special time for training you to do exactly what you want to do with your life. And I think that acknowledgement comes with certain work ethics and certain practices. But I think those practices can also manifest differently for different people. So that was a bit wordy, but hopefully this message is helpful.